All right, we're live. Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another edition of Market Rants. I'm your host, King Wabi, and today we're joined by Rob from Digital Asset News. If you guys have tuned in to some of our Twitter spaces, he pops in, every couple of weeks to talk shop and all that stuff. And me and Rob first got acquainted around this time last year in May after we started chopping for a few weeks. And here we are, guys. BTC below 60K. We broke down from the range that we were in for about 2 months, which was for about 60 to 72K. We were there for about 2 months. And yesterday during FOMC, we had that breakdown. And here we are trying to establish a new range. We do have some altcoins that are holding up better than BTC, but hopefully in this case, history doesn't repeat itself. Because as you guys know, anytime we do have altcoins holding up better than BTC and that becomes consensus, there ends up being one more final washout and then basically somewhat of a lull like we experienced last year on this time, right? We broke down from the range at about, mid-May, right around there, and basically did nothing for about 6 weeks, man. So nothing too formal today. We're just here to talk shop, just give our general rants about the market. And I've kind of come to the opinion, Rob, that, during this time period, maybe it's meme coins that are the assets that are undervalued, right? In the crypto markets. It seems like a lot of these newer tokens that were super hyped up, right? Like, we had the Eigenlayer news a day or two ago, right? Which was really a letdown, right? That was like one of Ethereum's, biggest things for the cycle, where even I believe like, oh, this is going to cause a new wave of liquidity to come into the ecosystem and all that stuff. And it just turns out, no, sir. Most of the airdrop allocation is going to go to our VCs that invested, years and years ago. So welcome to the show, man. How are you? And, what are some of your thoughts since we last spoke? I think the last time me and you spoke was actually when BTC was at like 71, 72,000, man.
Yeah, those are good times. Well, we'll see him again. It's not like that this cycle's over. People were asking me like, well, was that it? Was that the cycle? And I mean, all the different indicators I see, that wasn't the cycle. I made that mistake last time in 2021 when I thought that we would actually have an extended cycle. I think a lot of people were talking about that, but it just didn't come to pass. But if we would have taken a look at some of the charts and really paid attention, like the MVRVZ score, take a look at the 12 multiple, take a look at the pi cycle top, and then just take a look at how overheated RSI. You could kind of see that, at least if you didn't think it was over, maybe you should take some profits along that continuum. But right now, I don't see like that was it for this cycle. Now we got to wait until the next halving, which like 5 years. I mean, we got another 4 years to go. So no, I don't see it like that. But I do tell you, like meme coins, it's a funny thing. I think people have figured out the whole song and dance in the game. And the game is get VCs in. And for everybody who's sitting here watching this right now, first of all, welcome. You did the right thing to invest in the crappy bear market. But here's how it usually works out behind the scenes. You have a project that comes out. People want to hype it. So they reach out to everybody. They reach out to VCs. That doesn't work. They reach out to angel investors. That doesn't work. And in conjunction, they'll reach out to educators. Some people might call them influencers, and some people might call them shills. They're actually on a continuum of those people. There are some that are just disgusting shills, and there's some that are actually educators, and somewhere in between, maybe you call an influencer, but I think you should do more of your own research and stuff like that before you make any kind of decision. So they go there and they say, look, we're going to give you this opportunity. This opportunity is going to be, you can buy this at a reduced cost, and that is the seed or pre-seed round, or the private round. And you're going to have a lockup period, because we don't want you to, the good ones will say, there's going to be a lockup period. And it's going to be either 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, depending, because we don't want you to dump on the community. That's the good ones. The crappy ones will say, hey, there's no lockup period whatsoever. This is just between us. Do what you want to do. And of course, some people will go that route for the quick cash, and it'll screw up their whole reputation. And people don't figure out until the cycle's over. So that's it. But that's how things kind of usually run. It's either a crappy project that has some some junk tokenomics, or a pretty good project that, can say, hey, we're going to lock you up, or you're going to have a cliff, or there's going to be a vesting period. So, you can be along with the actual project itself. And for those people that actually invest into it, like somebody like me, if I invest in a project and I have like an 18-month cliff, you better believe I'm going to be talking about it and really pushing it and trying to educate people. And there's a reason why, because I believe in it. Now, if some people come in and they get in early, they write it up and they dump on me. What are you going to do? That's just how it goes. So that's the traditional part. Now, getting into the meme coin, this is the most interesting aspect. A lot of those meme coins, there is no private round. There is no seed round. There is no pre-seed round. And there's not a bunch of VCs getting into it. What it is just like, here's 100 million tokens, and it's all out there in the open. So you have your total supply, your max supply, and circulating supply, and it's already there. And now you just like, now it's like that scene from the Wild Wild West, when they're like looking, the gunslingers are looking at each other like, who's gonna sell first? Who's gonna sell first? And that's where it gets real. And the VCs can't dump on people because if they want to get in, it's all a fair launch. So I can't say all these meme coins are like that, but look for those where the max supply, total supply, and circulating supply are all there immediately. And it makes sense because people like a good gamble. That's it.
Yeah, like I've been going through some of the memes that I consider blue chips now. We just went through Pepe, and now we're here with WIF. And it seems like, when we talk about mind share for the crypto community and all that stuff, there's like two different avenues, right? Like people that are content creators like myself and you, we're always hit with, oh, do you want to get into this pre-sell? Do you want to get into the seed round, all that stuff? And that is a completely different market, right? We're talking about vesting periods and lockups and stuff like that. And there are even some projects that, even though they say like, you won't have any liquidity during TGE, a lot of these VCs are still able to get some liquidity because they have all of those locked up tokens earning yield. And then, that yield, within 2 months, 3 months, they've already recouped their investment by like 10x.
Yeah.
That's why, you have some tokens like this one I was like incredibly bullish on, man. They had so much good stuff, man. But, the market just forced its hand, right? Like Dimension here, right? A classic example, right? Huge community run up and all that stuff. But then, all these VCs, they earn their yield and, look at the price action that happens. And then you compare that with something like, say a Pepe, I mean, absolute monster, right? From the 14th, right? We had that little pump ski and then, huge melt up. Same thing with things like, something that's not a meme coin, right? FET, right? People are crazy about AI and all that stuff, man. Look at the tear that FET went on to, man. Almost a 10x, right? From like 40 cents to almost $4, right? So it seems like, at least for like the public market participants, it's things that either trend in TradFi, right? Like, I mean, everybody at this point knows what NVIDIA is and all that stuff. And Microsoft and Apple have absolutely ripped face. And it's like, outside of that, what else can capture attention? It's definitely not a layer one, right? Like how many layer ones have we gotten pitched over the last, 2-3 years, right? Or even over the last 12 months. And, you have these projects that are released that you've never even heard of, and they have like billions worth of FDV. And meantime, I'm going to go over to Ethereum here. We go to ETH BTC, right? And let's just put over the last 12 months, it's pretty much been, relatively down only for about 11 months, right? Of course, we have these periods of outperformance, right? But for the most part, the overall trend has still somewhat been down. And I feel like the market is so hungry for the altcoin space to go, ballistic to the point where there's only a handful of tickers now where public markets can really, benefit, right? We take a look at something like a Solana, right? How many things have launched on Solana where they go from 0 to like 200, 300 million, right? And on ETH, it's sort of like there's not much activity going on there. And me and you have been talking about Sol basically since we ran into each other about a year ago. So let me ask you this. Go ahead, Rob.
No, keep going. What you got? What's the question?
I was gonna ask you, man, like when you're approached by retail, what's the first thing that they ask you, right? It's definitely not, oh, what's the next L1? What's the next near? They ask you, how do I buy this dog with hat? How do I buy Pepe? What's what's the meme coin that I should buy, right? It's not necessarily the same tune that we had last cycle where it's like, mainly DeFi related and all that stuff. People obsessed with Polkadot and parachains and what have you.
Yeah, retail, like when they reach out on my channel, it's a whole plethora of different things that they ask me. One is, why does Bitcoin have value? Why did the market tank today? How can I stake this particular, how can I stake Cosmos? How can I stake Cardano? What's the next beam coin to do 1000x? It's all over the place of what they want to know. So like, it's just a random type of thing. I will say though, do me a favor, can you do a side-by-side? Or you have, okay, perfect. You have Ethereum. Click on Max on the very top right where it says Max. Take out Bitcoin real quick. I just want to see ETH. And also take a look at Tuker. No, take a look at Pepe coin.
Pepe. Okay. Oh,
yeah.
Pepe.
So like, yeah. So no. So like make can you make two screens? Because you're going to be flipping back and forth between the screen. Or sorry, a new tab to have Pepe come up.
Okay. Yeah, I have another tab open right here. Hold on.
Perfect. So yeah, use it over there. So what I want to show everybody is because one of the big questions is like, well,
can you see it? Do you see me shifting back and forth?
No, not yet, because I think what you did. When you present, there you go.
Okay.
So like when people get in, they're like, well, how do I make money on this? And of course, I can't give them financial advice because I'm not a financial advisor. But I can just tell you what I do every time. It doesn't matter what the project actually is. You have to assume when you get into the space that your token, your project, even if you're big in the community, will not make it at some point. Because think about how many different, I always use this example, think about how many restaurants open up around you and you go to that restaurant and it's awesome. And then you come back 6 months later and it's closed. Like, what the hell happened? It had great food, it had a great service, it had a reasonable price, it had good marketing, and it just closed down. Sometimes it's just the way the business works. You could have a great community and a great product that actually does something and it doesn't make it because other ones do it. So when I take a look at like just talking about projects or meme coins, if you take a look at, Wabi, do me a favor, switch back to Ethereum.
Okay.
In 2015, when it was essentially you could get into Ethereum.
Yeah, it was 70, so like 70 cents at some point.
Let's say like you're an early investor and you weren't a VC, but you were just some random dude or random gal who got in at $1.35, right? And you put in like $100. So you got like 100. So you got, okay, let's just say $1, you put in $100, you got 100 Ethereum, right? As soon as it went from $1 to $2, what I always do is I just sell. I sell half because I'm like, okay, I'm going to take my initial investment out, and now I let the rest ride. And then the next part is when it goes from $2 to $4 or even $6 if it triples, then I'll take another half out. And if you think about it like that, you went from 100 Ethereum to 50 Ethereum, now to 25 Ethereum. 25 Ethereum at $3,000 if you diamond hand all the way up, that's pretty good. And you won't ever feel like I missed it. Now take a look at Pepe. If you take a look at Pepe and say, okay, and then just take out, I think it's a comparison. I don't need it. Ethereum. Let's say you got in Pepe very early, whatever the price was.
Yeah, it was actually trending on Dex Screener for about a week, and then it took CoinGecko a while to. That's right, because CoinGecko is always a laggard. It can't pick it up. But let's just say that, and it's the same thing with Pepe coin or any coin out there. Like you get in super early, and you got to remember, you have to remind yourself that it's not you that has to do everything. It's that project has to prove it to you to stay in your portfolio, because you're giving your hard-earned money up for all these different tokens. So the same thing with me. If I for Pepe, which I didn't invest in Pepe, but I did invest in Tuker. I thought it was a pretty good one.
And I did invest in Dog with Pat and Costco hot dog and runes, all these things. As soon as it doubles, I sell half. And then when it doubles again, I sell half again. And sometimes if I think it's going to do really well, I'll wait to a 3 or 4x. But I figure if they want to be that blue chip meme token, that blue chip layer 1, like you were talking about, Wabi, that blue chip smart contract, that blue chip layer 2, hey, I'm just going to play with the house money and not have to worry so much about it. Now, the only problem that there's an issue with this is taxes. So you got to figure, like, when you sell, just know that you're going to have to pay taxes depending on where you're actually at. And if you sold before a year, it's going to be short-term capital gains, which are pretty brutal. But you know what's even more brutal? And Wabi, tell me this. How many times have you invested in something and the goddamn thing goes to zero? Or not zero. Let's just say like it bottoms like 90% plus. You're like, what happened?
I guess more recently, right, with Degen Chain, it was like a layer 3. It's a layer 3 built on Base, right?
Oh,
and
great.
I put in I put in 2 Ethereum like within 24 hours of the launch, and it did like a 12x within like 36 hours.
Awesome.
But one of our guys, Tucker, is like, Wabi, I think we should sell here. I think we should sell here, man. And I'm like, nah, dude, up only. This thing is going to keep on running. BTC is over 70,000. And then basically, 2 weeks later, I think I'm like break even or like 20, like within 20% of break even or something like that. Okay. But from the top, like it's probably down like 90%. That's the only thing I can think of, because I've always been more of a trader. But let me show you this, Rob. Talking about, blue chips and, L2s and memes, what's a blue chip and what's not a blue chip. There's a saying that goes, and I'm only going to show the last 3 months of price action. I think that's a bit more constructive, right? Here's WIF, right? I think, usually Q1 is the most prosperous prosperous quarter for altcoins, usually Q1 and Q4, right? For the halving or pre-halving and post-halving year. Those are usually the best quarters, Q1 and Q4, right? So we see dog with hat, right? 18 cents, 17 cents, rallies for, a month and a half, hits $5. Now get ready for this.
Pretty good.
Get ready for this.
Yeah.
Here's Arbitrum. Here's Arbitrum, right?
Yes.
Distribution, and then just, down only for the second half of March. And when we go back to WIF, right, second half of March, we had that, that last leg up that took us from, about, just under $3 to almost $5. So it's sort of like, what really is a blue chip, what's not a blue chip. Oh gosh, we're actually kind of like dumping on stream here a little bit, man. And CoinGecko is usually a laggard, but I mean, again, just going back to the 3-month trend, we first breached 50K plus in late February, and everybody was euphoric. Everyone was like, oh man, this time is different, this time the other. And if we just go back here on Max, right, and we go to, say, the last halving, right, which was like mid-May of 2020, right, we were, just shy of 10,000. And
Good times.
having before that, we were at like, a couple $100. So every halving is usually, another step bigger for Bitcoin. I think BTC is slowly becoming a macro asset, but I want to get your thoughts on that, man. Do you think BTC is going to be, considered what, the SPX and NASDAQ are in the next few years, especially with these ETFs going live? And it's such a hot topic. And going into this election, I think that like this is going to be the election where crypto is really at the forefront, right? And this administration that's currently in power in the US of A hates crypto, despises crypto to the point where like they want to have unrealized gains being reported. And that just makes absolutely no sense, right? And I see a lot of people fleeing from the West to go to places like Dubai and Hong Kong, places that are more pro crypto?
Yeah, so what's a lot to break down? Well, I'll be honest with you. There's like 4 questions there. So first I'll talk about, do I think Bitcoin could be the next great asset class? And I think you have to look at it like technology. And I use this example of when man first discovered iron ore 10,000, 20,000 years ago. They didn't really know this. Okay, this is great. This is great for protection. We can make flints. We can make spearheads, throw them at each other, maybe kill each other. Great. And then as you move forward, then you can make, shields, protect yourself. And as you move even forward, you take iron ore, another component, you can make steel. And then with steel, of course, you can make armor. But then moving forward, you can make that into steel beams, skyscrapers. You can make it into, vehicles, which actually drive. We don't need a horse. And then just recently, you can be on SpaceX, and you can make part of the space shuttles out of steel. So no one knew what the hell that was, 10,000, 20,000 years ago. It's the same thing with Bitcoin. If you go all the way back, it was, if you look at it, the white paper, it's a peer-to-peer system, and it's just for transactional purposes. It's a 9-page white paper, very easy. I think everybody should read it. And we wouldn't really kind of think of it as like, oh, it's a hedge against inflation. Oh, it's a store of value. Okay, well, it's not really a store of value in the short term. Maybe it's a 4-year store of value. And then as we just progress, we start to find these new narratives. I know people get sick of it, but I think it's going to find that. And then as we move forward, and Wabi, you were just talking about it, these layer 1s and layer 2 solutions, I think that the next big narrative for the next cycle will be layer 2 solutions built on Bitcoin, because it is the most battle tested, it is the most decentralized, and is the hardest asset out there and the most protected as far as a decentralized protocol. So if you can build on top of that with stacks or with core or whatever else and get DeFi and get actual transactions back in the game and actually buy like little things and move things around. And I just saw that MicroStrategy came out, and they're going to build a Bitcoin digital ID for everybody, well, if they want it, and it actually can be embedded into Bitcoin, just like what we're doing with runes. So like, think of it this way. Like, I don't want to get off topic too much, but NFTs on Ethereum and the different other ones, those NFTs they exist on Amazon Web Service or AWS. It's a link. It's not really on the actual blockchain itself. But with runes and things like that, it actually exists on Bitcoin. I don't think it's going to go anywhere for the next, 2 years.
Yeah, it's actually real.
Yeah,
it's actually real.
Right. So imagine this. And I don't know if this has happened to you. This happened to me. But my email has been spoofed before. It was reach out to these different projects. They paid these people tens of thousands of dollars for me to talk about their project. And then all of a sudden they're like, hey, where's our video? And I'm like, I don't know who the hell you are, man. Like, yeah, it's from here. It's from your email. And I'll be damned if it wasn't the exact same email. I go, if you go through Google and there's a spoof checker, you'll see it's actually not me. It didn't originate from mine. Now, we would never have known this if we had like a digital ID, right? That could actually be verified on chain. So that's that part. And then to talk about, I know you just talked about the current administration, President Biden, and of course everybody in, unfortunately, the SEC. They absolutely, I don't know if they hate, but they dislike strongly crypto. And there was that one part that you talked about as far as unrealized taxes. I remember that 2 years ago, same thing. It was a campaign promise that Biden put into that he would talk about taxing the super rich and unrealized gains, which will never work. And it happened, and they talked about it last year, and they talked about it this year. It can't happen, because if you're going to talk about unrealized gains, you got to talk about unrealized losses. And I got plenty of those, especially with the crazy meme coins I got into. There's tons of losses. So like that's not going to happen. The big question is going to be who's going to be the next president, and when is the next Fed rate cuts? And then the last question is, are we going to hit World War III? Are we actually going to be able to negotiate our way out of this thing? So I think that's the bigger questions.
Well, as far as war goes, man, I've seen some stuff on the timeline that's absolutely crazy, right? And, people say war is bullish and all that stuff. Take a look at World War II. It was actually pretty bad in markets for like a few quarters after that happened. Even during Bush's term, the market went down only after 9/11 for 18 months. It was horrific. It wasn't until in like March or April of 2003 where the market then went up only, and the result of all of that stuff was, the GFC. And since then, dude, like the Fed is now at a point where it's like damned if they don't cut rates, but damned if they go back to easing, right? So it's like
Right.
there's no escape from it, right? And right now, just looking at the market, I know some analysts are kind of viewing this market as 2019-ish, right? Like, we're essentially rallying during this pause period, but the Fed is going to cut rates at least one time. And I'll just go on over, right here to Bitcoin, and just to show the audience here, like what happened when the Fed cut rates during the last cycle. So
Nice.
we'll go on here to X, and then all right, we're here in 2019. I think the Fed cut like right around like late July. And, during that time in June, July, BTC was, just above 10K. And right when the Fed cut rates, which was right around here,
Mm-hmm.
a couple of months later, sub 10K, sub 9K, sub 8K. And then going into November, which was their last cut before, COVID happened, we went ahead and went back down to the eternal range of 6,000, 7,000. I understand the context, is a bit different because this asset class is, more mature. You have ETFs and all that stuff, but it doesn't really take, a genius to look at what's happened with history whenever the Fed has cut rates, right? So, we're looking, I think it's, what is it, Rob, like 40% that they might cut in the September meeting, 40%. And before it was like 80% or something like that. And it's looking more likely that they're probably going to cut more towards the election, right? I think that's what people are looking for. But if you got someone like Biden saying like, oh yeah, that Federal Reserve, that thing, they're gonna get at least one cut this year. So he's basically saying, you have until November to realize a lot of your gains before, the market takes, a little correction here, right?
Right. Yeah, I could. And then, of course, I mean, the thing is, once they start, and again, it's all about, why are they cutting rates? Did they achieve that soft landing, which I know people always laugh at, but I mean, they could do it. Stranger things have happened, and if they're able to do that, and they say, okay, well, now the economy is going the way we want it, we're going to slowly cut rates. And things will work out. But if not, if it's like, okay, everything's being affected too much, people can't afford houses, the debt is just getting out of control, we're going to have to cut the rates. And then what happens? We have to start printing money. I'm sorry, it's time to start up the printers. And then, of course, that's what everybody's waiting for, I think. Rates are great, but I think when the money printer goes brr, that's when we know that real gains are to be made.
Yeah, I believe during yesterday's FOMC, the tapering is now going to be adjusted to like 25 bill. That's over.
From 30 billion to 25, I believe it was. A slow regression.
Yeah. And that, I guess it climbs the wall of worry, right? But, if we look from like a seasonal perspective, I think that next window of upside liquidity comes during July, going into August. If you look at last year, right, for example, for BTC, right? If you go over here to the year, and then we go back to say, June-ish, whatever, right? We were at, for May to July, we were at 26, 28K, right around there. And then, going into July and August, we hit 31. We kind of raised her a little bit. So not too crazy, but something special, right? I think that was like a 25, 30% rally. Some on-chain stuff did pretty well. So maybe we just end up doing that. Maybe it's just like, perhaps 58K is the new 26 to 28K. We were just range bound for about 6 months and there wasn't really much to do, man. And macro became quite a big picture. And Solana, gosh, I want to show this, Rob. Like, people think Sol was just up only throughout all of 2023, and that could not be any further from the truth. So let's just go back here to the year, right? Over the last 12 months, you see this, guys. Solana was just hanging around the $20 region for the longest time. And then it wasn't until BTC broke out of 32K, right around late October, when we finally had that squeeze, right? Even if we just go here on Max, right? Look at that low, man. Look at that time-based capitulation. Of course, we had that little spring in Q1, but for the most part, look at this, Rob. From mid-January of 2023, all the way to October. We're talking like 10 months of conviction, of just holding this thing with, a bunch of headwinds and all that stuff. People saying, "Oh, the Fed is going to keep on hiking." And I'll ask you this, Rob: did this tightening cycle shock you in any capacity? The Fed was raising rates until August, September of last year. QT has been going on for almost 2 years. And I remember back when, in early 2022, when we were kind of, cooling off in the bull market, Luna was still a thing. We were just treading around the mid 40K regions, and people were saying, "Oh man, if the Fed raises rates to, 1%, Bitcoin's going to implode and go sub 10K. ETH is going to go back down to 200, $300. The altcoin space is just never going to come back if you have, over a year of tightening and raising rates and all that stuff." And I think like there's something to be said about this asset class from the way it's holed up amidst like, all this aggressive tightening. And, we were talking about earlier on the stream with, VCs throwing all this capital to all these projects, right? I think there was a project that they don't even have a token yet, Rob, but they're at a $3 billion worth valuation.
Nice.
And they don't even have a token. Like, there's not even a test net, but Paradigm is involved, and Paradigm threw in like $250 million into this thing. $250 million into this thing. And it goes back to my point where I feel like crypto just lives in this alternate reality compared to the real world. And a lot of people just don't see that, right? Like, if someone were to tell you, Rob, a few weeks after FTX imploded, that a year later you would have a picture of a dog with a hat, with no real team or anything like that, going to almost, what was it, like $5 billion in market cap in a couple of months, people called you a crazy person. But I feel like crypto is just, it's a thesis. Crypto is a thesis of like the most outrageous outcome is the most likely that's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially what it is. But I mean, it's not just like, you got to remember, it's not just crypto that does this. I mean, traditional companies will do the same thing. I mean, look at there's a big, huge business, multi-billion-dollar business. WeWork is supposed to transform the working landscape by people actually being able to rent an office space, and that imploded. And then there's another one, the EV market, a project called Nikola, I think it was called. Let me make sure. There was one that they were kind of running off the backs of the EV market, and it was the same thing. It was supposed to be the next Tesla, and of course, this came to be just a big, and people got really hook, line, and sinker into it, but it was a big fraud as well, and it just kind of collapsed. And now we see like these different projects coming in. I will say, like I said before, with the meme coins, at the very least, at least everybody gets on a level playing field. So I know that people will say, well, it's just a joke and it's just, it has nothing to do, it doesn't do anything. That is a very true point. All these meme coins are basically a joke and they don't absolutely do anything. But as far as like fairness, I think that's the whole thing that people look at. Like they're tired of getting screwed over by people, luring them in, pumping the actual token, then dumping on them. Like, you know what? the chip's already stacked against me. I'm going to try something else and go that route. You can do that, just a lot higher risk. Me personally, I do invest in the meme coins because it's fun, but it's not the entire portfolio. You gotta understand, for me, 75% plus is in Bitcoin. And then it goes into the blue chippers, which would be like the Cardanos and the Solana and not Optimism, Chainlink, things like that. Because I think those have been battle tested a little bit more than what are these meme coins. So, I mean, looking onto that, that's just where I stand on these different types of things. I think they'll give their own opinion of where they want to go, though.
So, Rob, I'll ask you this one question, and I don't hold this bag at all. I just see somebody in the comments saying any RWA tokens that you recommend, and when we talk about like utility projects, all that sort of stuff, I know Ondo, they're trying to tokenize like real world assets, like the entire stock market, starting with bonds and all that stuff. And they have some affiliation with BlackRock and all that stuff. What are your thoughts on a project like this, right? Like the price action has been somewhat constructive, but again, like CoinGecko isn't showing the full price history for this thing. I remember when this thing launched, it launched at like 8 cents, 9 cents, and pretty much pulled off over a 10x. And then you have something like, I'm sure you've heard of this token. Everybody has at this point.
Celestia.
Yeah, Celestia. Kind of the same thing, right? It released at like, sub $2 or whatever, $2 and change. And then again, CoinGecko always has some sort of like, price laggard, but this thing came out at like $1.80, $1.90, slightly over $2, and then pulled off a 10x. And Celestia, I believe they do data availability or whatever that is, but it's basically like when you have something like Solana that's always crashing, and they always have some sort of issue with their chain and they're shut down. They could just deploy on Celestia and become like, I guess, just use Celestia for data availability and all that stuff, and things would be a lot more smoother in that end. So from a fundamental and usability standpoint, products like Celestia or an Ondo, maybe they have some wiggle room to be considered real projects. But the fact of the matter is, something like a Celestia does have investors that bought this thing in private markets when it was at a penny. And I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's fair at all, because those unlocks, they are coming later this year and early next year, where the market cap is essentially going to triple. And a lot of things that crypto investors don't look at is FDV, right? Because at the end of the day, you are trading FDV over a long period of time. You are trading FDV. And I want to share this with you, Rob. A lot of people didn't really notice this, but just take a look at Solana, turn on market cap. What do you see here? An all-time high.
Yeah. It's a funny thing. Like you talk about Celestia, you talk about Solana, people say, it's a VC coin. Yeah. And I always look at them like, that's true. I mean, in the beginning it was, let's be honest, even the All In podcast made a joke about how much they're going to dump on people. But I will say there's only so much time that the VCs can be in there and rule the roost. So after 2021, and we got into the all-time high was December. I'm pretty sure it was December 2021, like everything else. November, December, somewhere around there.
Yeah, early November. A few days, 2 days before BTC hit 69K. Solana peaked out. Yeah.
And then as it sells off, because that's what VCs do, they probably sold a little bit before, probably a ton after. But then they had another peak. But then what happened? FTX collapsed. And with FTX collapsing, the problem with that is, of course, Solana was tied essentially to SBF and how much he had invested into it. So I know people say, well, these VCs and they're doing everything. And I'm just thinking to myself, do you think the VCs, they just did a round trip, just held everything at the top and all the way to the bottom?
Absolutely.
Do you think maybe they sold a big bag of it and we all got to gobble that up. And that's where we're at right now. So I know people will complain about it, but in all honesty, you shouldn't be complaining. It's you now versus those VCs. It's you now versus the smart money. I don't think it's really smart money, I think it's just big money. It's your decision now to compete against those guys. Who's going to get dumped on? Are you going to be the dumper, or are you going to be the dumpee? At some points, remember to take profits. And don't listen to people when they're like dancing around going, oh, Solana now is at, I don't know, $1,000. You're like, well, that's okay because I sold half. I got my money back. I let the house ride. I sold another half when it went up. And now I'm holding X amount of Solana. I am stress-free. I don't have to deal with, oh, I put, $100,000 in, and I sure as hell hope it doesn't go past the $200 mark when I got into Solana. Oh, it did. Went out 130. Now I'm super underwater. I just look at this. I'm just like, just take some profits and don't listen to the nonsense, which is you got to diamond hands everything forever. You got to pay the bills.
Yeah, that's something that people don't realize, that like in a bull market, everybody's friends. But when you took profit and all that stuff, it's like, oh, you have insider information. Oh, you're dumping on your audience and all that stuff. And touching upon Solana hitting $1,000, that would basically equate to the recent local top that Ethereum hit at 4,200, almost $500 billion. So
exactly, Wabi. Yeah, do me a favor. Like, can you pull up my Twitter account or X account?
Yeah.
It's just on an ad news asset. And I want to tell everybody this is that when you start selling, people are complaining to you about, well, how dare you dump on me? Just remember, you got to ask them the question, like, where were you in the bear market when I was buying all this stuff as you were dumping myself? So scroll down. Hey, there we are. Look at that. Keep going down. Cito, down. And I post a lot. Keep going. There's going to be this little video, essentially, where I'm just showing how everything just gets dumped on. And I'm just reminding people, like, hey, if you're going to keep dumping and dumping and dumping, don't worry about it. I can still keep buying as much as I possibly can. There it is right there. One more. Keep going. That's the one.
I'll put the volume up now.
There's no music. I just like to remind people that, hey, you're dumping on me and it's okay. So when at some point I decide to sell my bags, don't bitch and complain. I was here. You guys were here in the bear market. When the new people come in, don't feel bad about that. That's the name of the game, right? I held up these portfolios. I held up these projects by buying when I really maybe should have been a little bit on the sidelines, and I did it. So again, as things get dumped on, I'll buy.
Oh man, dude, SBF, gosh. Oh, that guy, man, that guy. It's so fitting, man, that once his court case, started, market just started to kick up into high gear. And wouldn't it be, ironic that, CZ starting his house arrest would mark the bottom, and then we just melt up from there.
That would be great.
It would be great. I feel like,
Wally, real quick, what do you think about that? Wasn't it like, I see it as like a very selfless thing to go and fall on that dagger, which CZ did. Like, he essentially said, hey, I could live in Dubai and any place I want to, but I'll go and, I'll step down as a CEO of Binance. I'll let you guys give me a fine of $50 million or whatever it was, and then 2.3 billion for Binance. And I'm going to go to jail 4 months so I can absorb all these sins that we did and come out. Do you think it was like a selfless thing, or like, it's just what he had to do?
I think at the end of the day, man, I think CZ got a slap on the wrist.
Sure.
I'm sure, he put some people under the bus. I mean, he has a family. His entire family got doxxed, close friends and all that stuff. And I think CZ, if it wasn't for CZ or Binance, crypto wouldn't really be where it's at today. Bitcoin certainly wouldn't have the adoption that it has today. When you take a look at everything outside of the US of A, who was at the forefront of 2019 and 2020, it definitely wasn't, your Bitcoin maxis that spend all their time on Twitter Spaces. It's definitely not them. It's definitely not them. When we talk about actual contributors, right? People that stick their neck out and, have given their entire lives to a cause, akin to like a Steve Jobs, it would have to be CZ from Binance. And, I think at some point he'll be, he'll be active on social media, but definitely not in the way where like he's in tune with crypto culture. I think CZ had his graceful exit, man. House arrest, couple of months. He's well off. He still has some Binance equity. At some point, whenever Binance is sold off, he'll be one of the richest men on the planet if he's not already, because he has a ton of crypto. But not all companies last forever, right? Like I think the average time span of a company, just look at something like a Toys R Us, right? They've been in and out of bankruptcy for like 40 years plus, but they're not the same titan that they were 20, 30 years ago. So I think Binance at some point might just be in that situation where they're a titan now, but eventually the torch gets passed down. But I definitely think that when it comes to like the godfathers of crypto, CZ is definitely up there. And as far as like his jail time, do I think it was deserving? I don't think so, man. I don't think so. You have Jamie Dimon. How many times has JP Morgan Chase been caught with you know laundering money and drugs and all that stuff and influencing the precious metals market? But he's still there giving seminars to universities whenever they graduate, giving motivational speeches, and he's never done a single time in jail. And I think it's very hypocritical of the United States. And there's a reason why people are leaving this country and going over to places like Dubai. And I think even Roger Ver, he had some legal issues with the USA, even though he renounced his citizenship. And
Yeah.
I just think
Yeah.
it's really criminal, man. Honestly, at the end of the day, all these fines and jail time and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
Veer was, yeah, those are good points. It was a good points. Roger Veer, I had him on the show once, real nice guy. And I know some people hate his guts because he brought us Bitcoin Cash, but
Oh gosh, man.
but like, yeah, he got busted out because he was in Spain. He had renounced his citizenship in 2014. They said he owed $50 million from 2017 because it was his corporation that he purchased the Bitcoin under. And they said that, because of that, it wasn't an individual. And an S Corp, C Corp, LLC is a corporate entity, and you still have to pay us that 50 million, which I think he's got. So, but we'll see if they're going to actually slap him on the wrist or give him jail time for not paying and trying to hide it. And these are just things that are alleged. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, and I don't even pretend to be.
Yeah. At some point, man, I think something's got to give when it comes to the powers that be of whoever is the individual that's giving all these guys a hard time. I think at some point, man, like crypto is probably going to become more of a TradFi asset, and all these godfathers of crypto, they're going to be made martyrs of. And I think probably the next step of that is like, probably people on crypto Twitter and all that stuff. All the people that Zach XBT throws under the bus. Probably at some point he'll probably be thrown under the bus at some point because he probably knows people that have done some pretty shady stuff. And I think that like if you're an American in the crypto market, I think this is probably like the last cycle where you can participate in all of this deviancy, right? And I mean that's just my dubious speculation, right? If this current administration stays, I think after this year, a lot of people are probably gonna like what California is to the United States from a state perspective. I think from a country perspective, you're going to see a lot of people from America leave, right? The same population problem you're having in California, I think America is going to experience that after this year if the current administration stays and the powers that be continue with all of this like deviancy, right? All of this pointing fingers. Hey, you owe us $1 billion because of what you did 10 years ago or whatever, right? And we still have Sam Trabucco. Nobody knows where he is, right? It's probably on some random island that nobody knows about, but he's taken care of for life, right? He probably switched on a few people, but I think there's a reason why a lot of people from crypto Twitter are not participating as much. Like Kobe, right? Like he doesn't even do his YouTube show anymore, right? He barely posts on Twitter, and I don't blame them, right? I sort of think that the crypto market is sort of how the stock market was in the late 80s, right? Like that fast-paced stuff, everybody's screaming, yelling in the office kind of stuff. If you've ever seen, Wolf of Wall Street or Boiler Room, Boiler Room is a movie that's like highly underrated. You ever seen that with Vin Diesel?
Yeah, I saw bits and pieces of it. Looked pretty good. Never saw the whole thing.
Yeah. So it's, basically just a bunch of like finance men screaming in an office, making calls, selling pink sheet stocks. I think that is the stage of where the crypto market is at right now. And, fast forward, 20, 30 years later, it's no longer like that. The stock market is a bit more relaxed, a bit more calm, and there's not many main characters, right? Like you have in crypto, right? Like, I guess, like there's no such thing as a stock market influencer, but a crypto influencer. Oh boy, man, there are hundreds of them, right? They're called KOLs, right? But there's no stock market KOLs or anything like that, right? So, sort of my rant there, brother.
No, there's some stock market KOLs, I guess, out there, but they don't get into they might get into DJ and stuff. I just don't watch it. I don't really. Traditional equities are not my thing.
Yeah, I've never had a brokerage account in my entire life, man. I just don't see myself participating in any other market except crypto. And simply because, like, if you're bullish on IWM, we've got Ethereum, right? And IWM, right? That's the Russell. It's comprised of like a lot of low cap stocks. Anytime the Russell, goes on a tear, Ethereum goes on a tear. And if the IWM isn't doing okay, Ethereum's not really doing okay. If you're bullish on just the overall stock market and all that stuff, Bitcoin should do pretty well. If Bitcoin does pretty well, then you have things like Solana that do pretty well. And, if you say, oh, if Solana is doing pretty well, that means Ethereum is doing pretty well. Not exactly. Just look at Sol ETH. Just look at, the last year. Solana's just been dominating Ethereum through the majority of the cycle. And I think Ethereum's going to have a pretty rough time, honestly, throughout the majority of the cycle. And
I don't know because I'm going to tell you what, the people that I know in Puerto Rico, they're like these crypto OGs, and they just always remind me, these VCs and these OGs have a lot of money stuck in Ethereum, and they are not going to let that go quietly in the night. That's why you see a bunch of layer 2s and now layer 3s. So they said they'll just keep that game going. I personally don't care which one wins. I just don't care. I just, I try to diversify as much as I possibly can and try to pick the winners with the right narrative. But as far as like, if someone could tell me like in 10 years, this will be the prevailing chain, I don't think that's ever going to happen. I think the future is multi-chain, and it's just going to be a different groups of chains. One does something better than the other one, and we'll just use a massive more amount, not a massive, but more amount of chains, just like what we did with like cell phones or cellular service. In the beginning, it was like, you have Verizon? Cool, I can call you. You have AT&T? Oh, I don't have that. And then it's just all of a sudden they all just kind of share the networks. Then you don't even know which one you're using, much until you get the bill, of course.
Yeah, so we just got to find the AT&Ts of crypto, right? I'd like to think something like Celestia can be like that, but just from like an ROI perspective, if you're really looking at making the most amount of capital, I think we have to ask ourselves, as far as mind share goes, when you go on, X, right? If you go on YouTube, if you go on TikTok, what are the most viral things? They're memes, they're tropes, right? So if you find like a digital version of that, what's it going to be, right? What's the greatest asset that you can position in to take advantage of a meme coin economy? I mean, a meme economy, not meme coin economy.
Hey, take a look at Tuker. Tooker. You know which one that is?
T, how do you spell it?
Tooker.
Oh, Tucker Carlson. That one?
Yeah, it's up 43% today.
Okay.
I found this like last week, just something random because it's a meme coin. But if you go to their website, like underneath info, the smart contract and website, it's pretty funny because Tucker Carlson is a play on words for Tucker Carlson, and they have this like daily, sometimes weekly show, depending, and it's just hilarious. It's hilarious, and they get political sometimes, and it's just funny. So you have a meme coin that has a show that is, sometimes they have some pretty viral videos that are on YouTube and X and Discord and everything else. And it's like, I'm like, well, what the hell else can do it? There's another one, Netflix. And I'm not really too versed in that one, but essentially it's like all the different memes that you have. I think it's Nutflix. All the memes that you have. Yeah, Soul. It's like the Netflix of memes. It's pretty funny. And of course it has like a little bit, so people say, it doesn't have any utility. Well, Tucker makes me laugh pretty hard sometimes. So that's utility for me. I'm pretty happy about that. And then Netflix, we'll see how that one goes. But like these things, you never know.
So this is basically like a Bowden, isn't it?
Bowden, and they have Bowden I never really got into, but what is Bowden's like more memes? Do they do any kind of like shows or stuff like that? I have no idea.
No. I'm just saying like from like the little avatar thing.
Yeah. Kind of looks like the same thing.
Yeah. I guess that's like the mascot, right, for Solana, like art like that. And man, I think something like a Dogecoin. I own none of this, by the way, guys. Take a look at something like Dogecoin. I
own it all. Keep going, Wabi. Sorry.
Over the last couple of months, man, Doge really teased a ton of people with this little area right here. Because if you go on Max, right, like we're basically like right above the levels that we were at, right before the new year happened, right? And I think if we would have gotten above this level, it would have been a straight rocket, to right here, right? Like 30 cents ish. And, right above 30 cents, it's pretty much air, much air. And that was like the path of resistance. And, again, going back to something like Pepe, I was actually getting pretty scared, honestly, Rob. If you go on everything, because again, I'm going on market cap here, the all-time high market cap for Pepe was $4 billion. And if it would have done a 10x, right? So you have Pepe here, and then let's go on over to something like a render, right? Because I want to show, things that have been trending in this market for the altcoin space. And for the most part, it's been AI and memes, right? So you go on market cap, near $5 billion. And if it would have done a 10x, right, something like a render or a Pepe, you basically run into a place where it's valued at something like a Solana, right, near its all-time high from last bull market, right, 70 bill plus. And then let's take a look at something like, a Polkadot, right, because it was trending last market cycle. Again, near 50 bill, 60 bill. Let's take a look at AVAX. This is the last one that I'll use, right? Market cap, max, near 30 bill. So where I'm getting at, brother, is that we were getting into a situation where the market didn't really have that many legs, right? And I know some people are like, oh, the on-chain market, things on Sol, things on this chain, things on that chain. My AI coins on ETH are not correlated to that. They might not be, for the first week and a half after these majors top. But within, 3 to 4 weeks, all of those things that act as beta eventually do top out, and then the market is over, right? Just again, take a look at something like a Doge from last cycle, right? We'll go on market cap, we'll go on max, right? Right here, when Doge peaked out in May, I don't have to show anybody what happened. After mid-May, the entire market just went down only for, a little over 2 months. So where I'm getting at is like, I think that the market got way too ahead of itself in March, mid-March, late March. And I think if we kept on going, this actually would have been the shortest crypto cycle ever. And I think that would have been a lot of pain for people, honestly.
Yeah, well, I guess it all comes down to we'll never know exactly what could have been. We can only deal with what it is now and make a plan for what we potentially will see in the future.
Yeah, with that being said, guys, I think I'm going to wrap it up here. We've been going on for an hour. So, guys, if you enjoyed the show, feel free to hit that like button. Feel free to hit subscribe and all that stuff. And once again, this show is brought to you by Because Bitcoin. Feel free to subscribe. Free newsletter right here. You can check out table of content. We have Market Check. It's our YouTube show, how we start off the day, and then Market Talk hosted by me, King Wabi. I think I have to get rid of this, man. I have to take like a proper headshot. That was done by Ed. He used AI or something like that. And of course, feel free to check out becausebitcoin.com for all of your news-related stuff. Check out our products. Shout out to all of our partners and sponsors and all that stuff. And we'll see you all tomorrow at 11 a.m. EST for Market Check. Then I'll be going live on Spaces at about 4:20. 4:30 p.m. EST and all that stuff. And you can follow Rob and his channel under the description box below. So once again, hit that like button, hit that subscribe, turn on bell notifications to keep up with all of our shows. Huge shout out to you guys in the audience. Rob, is there anything that you want to say before I close off the stream here, brother?
No, I think we did it justice today. I think we're good to go.
That was pretty based, man. So thank you. Seems there are no questions here in the chat. So we'll see you all on the next one. So take care, everyone. God bless you all. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bye-bye. Take care.
Adios. All right.
Yeah, now it's